Today, we are going to talk about the concept of mutual fund. So, what is a mutual fund? Let's begin with having some understanding of this concept. In simple words, a mutual fund is a financial intermediary that pools savings of many investors and then invests those pooled funds in different securities like stocks, bonds, and short term debt. There are basically two modes that can be used to invest by the people. The first option is to invest directly or by self picking of stocks and bonds, right? This option can be used by somebody who has a fair understanding of how to invest in the market. But there can be people that might not be able to make investment themselves due to lack of educated proficiency or insight required for making investments. Such people who are dumb in investment skills do have a choice, and that is nothing but the mutual fund, right? Therefore, in lieu of some fee, mutual fund intermediary will help investors who lack investment skills to make investments on their behalf. So we have two choices, either to invest on our own through a broker. In that case, we will have to pay brokerage, or else invest through a financial intermediary called mutual fund, in which case also we will have to pay some fee. The difference between the two is that of stock selectivity. And what is that? Let's try to understand. In the first case, an investor picks up or selects stocks himself, while in the second case, that is the mutual fund, picking or selection of stocks is done by the mutual fund entity, right? So that's a mutual fund in a simple sense. Let's look on a few more things about the mutual fund. The mutual funds are successful entities because they manage to bring together investors having common investment objectives. What can these objectives be? For instance, some investors may be interested in higher returns, while others may be having more preference for liquidity, right? Every investor in a mutual fund is actually having proportionate ownership interest in the mutual fund's asset portfolio, which can be determined by the number of units he may be holding divided by the total number of units outstanding in a mutual fund. In fact, the proportionate ownership does not represent share in overall assets. Rather, it's the share in the total assets minus the expenses of the fund, right? This is what mutual fund word conveys in the title of mutual fund. The word mutual indicates that all returns of the fund minus its expenses are shared by the unit holders of the fund, right? This is the overall process flow of a mutual fund. On clockwise basis, this process begins with investors that are searching for a professional manager in the market to manage their investments. So investors subscribe to the offer of a mutual fund by buying its units, that is its shares. Okay, so units are nothing but the shares offered by the mutual fund. This leads to generation or pooling of a large corpus of the fund, the selling of shares or units by the mutual fund, right? Then mutual fund hires an expert fund manager who is entrusted with the job of investing the corpus of money into different securities. Then over time, mutual fund portfolio is regularly rebalanced by the fund manager through buying and selling of securities. If certain securities in the mutual fund portfolio are doing considerably well, then such securities are not sold. Rather, they are held by the fund for a certain time. Otherwise, when securities are not doing well, then they are disposed of. This is how a mutual fund portfolio is regularly balanced, right? Now, this process leads to generation of returns, both capital gains as well as dividends on the securities in the mutual fund portfolio. These returns minus the expenses of the fund are then passed on to the investors. This is in simple how a mutual fund actually works. Mutual funds are just like any other financial intermediary in the market. But the difference between banks and mutual funds is that the banks intermediate by facilitating the depositors to lend their savings in loans and advances, while as funds intermediate by helping investors to place their funds in market tradable securities. Right? So that is the fundamental difference between a bank and the mutual fund, though both of them are financial intermediaries. Now, to have a better perspective of what mutual funds are, right? Let's compare them with bank deposits. Okay, we do so because mutual funds and banks follow the same business philosophy of pooling money to invest or lend and make portfolios. In case of banks, they make loan portfolios, but however, in case of mutual funds, They make portfolios of market tradable securities. That's what is the difference, right? That's what the main difference, right? But there are some other fundamental differences as well between the mutual funds and the banks. Now, what are those? Let's try to understand them. The first point of distinction between mutual fund and the commercial bank is that depositors in a bank do not know where their money is lent as a loan. However, investors in a mutual fund always know in advance the names and amounts that are invested by mutual fund in different companies or securities. In mutual funds, there is a concept of net asset value, which means that on daily basis, investors in a mutual fund know precisely what is the worth or market value of their units that they are holding in the mutual fund, right? There is, however, no such scheme of valuation being used in case of bank deposits. Therefore, mutual funds give more transparency to their subscribers than the banks provide to their depositors, right? After that, returns on a mutual fund directly depend on the performance of assets held by the fund. However, returns in case of the bank deposits do not depend on how bank performs on its loan portfolio, right? The bank may have to repay a deposit liability despite how it performs on its loan portfolio, right? The mutual fund works on pass through principle, while as bank deposits follow pay through principle. Now, what does that pass through and pay through mean, right? In case of pass through mechanism, income and capital appreciation earned on the asset portfolio is directly passed to the unit holders. Whereas in case of pay through mechanism, income and other capital appreciations are not directly passed to the unit holders. Rather, they are retained by the fund for reinvestment, right? So that was how mutual fund differs from commercial bank deposits. Last but one, mutual funds entail investment and market risks for the investors, whereas bank deposits are covered by insurance under Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation Act of 1961, right? Finally, mutual fund unit holders are the fund's shareholders, well as the bank's depositors or the bank's creditors. Okay, so this is how mutual funds are different from, bank deposits, right? Next, we look at the various benefits that accrue to investors who choose to invest through mutual funds. On your screen, these are the various benefits that mutual funds provide to investors. For instance, these benefits include professional investment management, risk reduction through diversification, convenience, lower transaction costs, regulatory protection, etc. We will now discuss each of these mutual fund benefits in more detail. The first advantage of investing through mutual funds is they provide investors with an outlet of investment that's managed by the expert professional fund managers. Therefore, such a mode of investment is ideal to all those investors that do not have the right or adequate time or skill to manage their own portfolios, right? Moreover, mutual fund investment economizes the cost of management of an asset portfolio. So making of investment becomes affordable to the investors. The second benefit of investing through mutual fund is that an investor can get a slice or share in a diversified portfolio, right? As an individual investor, pursuing diversification may not be possible. You know why? Because to have diversification, it requires huge funds and many assets in a portfolio, right? Since mutual funds have large corpus of money, therefore they can easily pursue diversification by spreading their wealth into a basket of good securities. Next benefit of mutual funds is that they offer convenience both for entry as well as exit, and also give wider choice of variety to their subscribers. Now, what does that mean? It means that it is easy to buy and sell mutual funds either in the market, on the stock exchange, or by seeking direct redemption from the mutual fund itself. Further, offering of more convenience to investors is possible when they are provided with a wider choice of schemes that would be consistent with their individual risk return liquidity preferences, right? So that's how mutual funds bring in a lot of convenience to the investors. Another advantage of investing through mutual funds is that they charge less transaction fee from their investors. This is possible how, right? Due to economies of scale, mutual funds pay lower transaction costs. The benefit of low transaction costs are then passed on to the mutual fund investors, which may not be enjoyed by an individual investor who enters the market directly. Finally, mutual funds in India are regulated by the Securities and Exchange Board of India, that is SEBI. No mutual fund is allowed to be floated in the market unless it obtains permission from the SEBI. Moreover, mutual funds are required by the law to provide its investors daily with net asset value information of the investment. Right? Mutual funds are also obliged to tell their investors about in what securities their funds have been invested and how much funds are invested in each company. Right? All this brings in transparency to the mutual funds, and this is how investors in mutual funds have their interests protected by the SEBI. Now let us see what are the different types of mutual fund schemes, right? Broadly, mutual funds can be classified in two ways, that is on the basis of maturity and on the basis of investment objective. Let's understand each of these categories of mutual funds in more detail. On the basis of maturity, mutual funds are of two types, open-ended funds and closed-ended funds, right? An open-ended fund is a fund that is available for subscription and can be redeemed on continuous basis. It is available for subscription throughout the year, and investors can buy and sell units at net asset value or NAV related prices. Right? These funds do not have a fixed maturity date. The key feature of an open-ended fund is liquidity. Now, contrast to an open-ended fund, there is closed-ended fund. A closed-ended fund is a fund that has a defined maturity period, for example, 3 to 6 years. These funds are open for subscription for a specified period at the time of their initial launch, right? They operate just like an IPO. These funds are listed on a recognized stock exchange. Now, you may ask about redemption or liquidation of mutual funds. That requires a bit clarification. The open-ended mutual funds are redeemed by the mutual fund itself. So that means if a mutual fund, investor wants to sell its open-ended mutual fund units, it will have to go to the mutual fund company and ask for the redemption, right? But closed-ended funds can be sold in the secondary market as they are listed on the stock exchange, right? So they do not require any redemption from the mutual fund entity. Let's look at the features of open-ended funds, right? Open-ended funds continuously on each day buy and sell shares at a price called the net asset value, right? There is no legal limit on the number of shares that can be issued under an open-ended scheme, right? Because every day there is entry and exit. Every day, some investors buy and sell, open-ended mutual fund units back to the mutual fund, back to or from the mutual fund company, right? Further, total investment in the fund will vary will vary based on share purchases, share redemptions, and fluctuations in the market value, right? So there is no consistency in case of the value of the portfolio when we talk about an open-ended mutual fund. Then we have closed-ended fund. In this case, shares to the public are sold or issued only once when they are created through an initial public offering, right? Thereafter, these shares are listed for trading on a stock exchange. Therefore, closed-ended funds can be easily bought and sold by the investors on their market prices. So there is a market price mechanism in case of closed-ended funds. Whereas in case of open-ended funds, since they are not traded on the stock exchange, there is no market price mechanism. So all we have is net asset value on which they can be traded or they can be, purchased or sold back to the mutual fund company, right? So in case of closed-ended funds, okay, they are sold or issued only once when they are created through an initial public offering. Thereafter, these shares are listed for trading on a stock exchange. Therefore, closed-ended funds can be easily bought and sold by investors on their market prices, right? The price on which closed-ended funds trade in the market may be significantly different from their net asset value. Now, what does that mean? It means that the price may be either at premium to the net asset value, meaning that it will be higher than the net asset value, or else more commonly, it will be at a discount to the net asset value, meaning that it will be lower than the net asset value. So what does it mean? In simple, since closed-ended funds are traded in the market, there will be a market price mechanism. So at times, their market price will be either higher than their net asset value or lesser than their net asset value. In case the market price is higher than the net asset value, that means in such cases, closed-ended mutual funds are trading in the market at a premium. But when the market price is less than the net asset value, on those occasions we say that the close-ended funds trade on a discount to their net asset value, right, in the market. Okay, then we need to know what's the net asset value or NAV. Net asset value or NAV is the total asset value net of expenses per unit of the fund and is calculated at the end of every business day. So it is the mutual fund company that calculates this value and makes it available to the investors in a mutual fund, right? So that means on daily basis, mutual fund has the obligation or the responsibility to calculate the net asset value and then disclose it in the market, publish it in the market, right? The net asset value of mutual fund is calculated by taking the current market value of the fund's assets and subtracting from them the liabilities, if any, and dividing it by the number of shares or units outstanding. So this is how net asset value is calculated, right? In fact, net asset value or NAV represents the fair value of a share in the mutual fund. Okay, because there is no market value concept, particularly in case of open-ended funds, right? Now let's learn how to calculate net asset value or NAV, right? On your screen, there is a simple illustration that says the market value of securities of a mutual fund scheme is 50 million with an operating cost of 0.20 million, right? If the mutual fund has issued 1 million units, then the net asset value per unit of the fund is how much? Okay, it's obviously 50 million minus 0.20 million divided by 1 million, and that comes to 49.80 per unit. So that is how net asset value is calculated, right? Now let's go through mutual fund schemes that are classified on the basis of investment objectives, right? There are 5 such schemes. For instance, growth funds invest a major part of its corpus in stocks, and the investment objective of these funds is long-term capital growth, right? Then we have income funds. Income funds generally invest in securities such as bonds, corporate debentures, gilt securities, and money market instruments. By investing in such instruments, these funds provide low risk and stable income to investors with preservation of their capital, right? Then we have balanced funds. Balanced funds are hybrid as they invest in both equities as well as fixed income securities in line with the predetermined investment objective of the scheme. These funds provide both stability of returns as well as capital appreciation to the investors, right? These funds with equal allocation to equities and fixed income securities are ideal for investors looking for a combination of income and moderate growth, right? Then we have money market or liquid funds. Money market or liquid funds invest in safer short-term instruments such as treasury bills, certificate of deposit, and commercial paper for a period of less than 91 days, right? The aim of money market or liquid funds is to provide easy liquidity, preservation of capital, and moderate income, right? These funds are ideal for corporates and individual investors looking for moderate returns on their surplus funds. Then we have gilt funds. Gilt funds invest exclusively in government securities. Although these funds carry no credit risk, they are associated with interest rate risk, right? These funds are safer as they invest in government securities. So that was the analysis of mutual funds on the basis of investment objectives. Then we examine the organizational structure of a mutual fund. On the screen, you can see a typical organizational setup for a mutual fund in India. As per law, every mutual fund should follow this structure order to float a mutual fund in the market, right? On top of this structure, there is a sponsor. That's a company which sponsors a mutual fund. Then the next constituent in the organizational structure of mutual fund is the trust. Then there are other constituents like custodian, asset management company or AMC, registrar and transfer agent or RTA, banker, and the distributor. Next we will understand role of each participant in the overall structure of the mutual fund. First, let us see who is the sponsor and what does it do, right? The sponsor is the promoter of a mutual fund. It could be a company or a bank. For instance, the companies like Reliance, Tata, Birla, HDFC Bank, State Bank of India sponsor various mutual fund schemes in the market. The sponsor gets a mutual fund registered with the market regulator, that's SEBI. Then it forms a trust and appoints board of trustees. This is just to ensure that the two, that is the mutual fund and its sponsor, are not mingled, right? Or not combined. Because if a company or a bank or any other eligible institution offers a mutual fund, such a business of mutual fund shall have to be separate and independent from the parent or sponsoring company. That's what is the regulatory requirement. Next, we understand what is the definition of a trust, right? On many times in financial markets, we enter into trust relations or engage a trustee. Take the example of putting one's shares into a demand account. A similar example is when we want our money to be remitted to a third party through a bank. On both the cases, we are actually doing a transaction which involves entering into a trustee relationship with the banker or with some other financial intermediary, right? A trust is defined as a legal contract that establishes a relationship whereby property is held by one party for the benefit of the another, right? A trust may be needed for tax reasons or to control the property and its benefits if the settler is absent, incapacitated, or dead. So, in case of mutual funds, the settlers or the investors that are incapacitated or lack the required know how about managing an investment portfolio, right? That's why they shift their funds to the trust, which is the mutual fund itself in the given case. Now, look at the job of a trustee in a mutual fund. The trustee holds assets on behalf of the unit holders in the trust. The trustee appoints the custodian as well as asset management company for the fund and ensures that all the activities of the asset management company are in accordance with the regulations of the SEBI. That's the market regulator. Now we understand what is the role of the custodian. A custodian holds the fund's securities under safekeeping, right? And also settles securities transactions for the fund. Moreover, the custodian also collects interest and dividends paid on securities that are owned by the fund. The custodian also acts as a record keeper of information on stock splits and other corporate actions relating to all the assets or securities held by the fund. So that's what is the responsibility of custodian in a mutual fund. Then we have asset management company or AMC. Its responsibility in the fund is to float the various mutual fund schemes and then manage them in accordance with the SEBI regulations, right? Next it's the distributor or agent in the mutual fund who is responsible for selling of units on behalf of the mutual fund. So essentially, distributor or agent in the mutual fund markets the mutual fund scheme in the market to the investors. Then there is a banker who is engaged by the mutual fund to undertake financial transactions of payment and receipt of money on behalf of the mutual fund, right? Finally, we have registrar and transfer agent or RTA. And let's see what does he do in the framework of a mutual fund, right? The job of a RTA or registrar and transfer agent is basically very much operational. The RTA maintains records of unit holders accounts and transactions, right? So RTA provides unit holders with transaction services. For example, it prepares and distributes account statements. The RTA also disburses and receives funds on account of unit holders transactions, right? With this, we come to the end of today's discussion on the concept of mutual fund and its functioning.